I think you don't come visit IT so frequently like before.
Yeah, now because our work is completed.
Ah,
Now we're moving towards finishing.
yes.
So, but last 2 years I could not meet you. Yes, I was there. Remember?
Oh.
Then I was there, I think about a month and a half and also.
Are we ready to start? Do you want to wait for some time?
I see.
Sure. I have faculty interviews at 10, so you have to remember that, okay? So today we have faculty
Oh, yeah.
going on.
Pre-COVID, post-COVID.
So I will-
That is easier, Baba is now over.
Yes.
Taking a snap of any sort of morning program now. So, did you fly this morning?
No. In fact, I came yesterday. I came to this hall yesterday just to check the arrangements.
I can
Yes, sure.
is the first period. Only class is for 50 minutes. Most 10 minutes gap. Right now, we have 3 videos here, okay, which are covered on ABC, but actually there are 9 of this, which is chemical engineering. Okay, you heard of this. This is my time. Thank you. I have to bring it here.
He's always
Itch. Different so no questions. Okay. This happens. That's why we call it you don't call it like
Hello. Hello. A very good morning to one and all present here. The Department of Liberal Arts, in association with the Office of International Relations, IIT Hyderabad, and Japan International Cooperation Agency, welcome you all to the first JICA chair lecture by Professor Taichi Ono. The relationship between JICA and IIT Hyderabad is steeped in legacy and has strengthened with time. Initially, in 2007, it was based on the commitment between the prime ministers of the two countries. Since then, IIT Hyderabad has been the most important institute for JICA's cooperation toward human resource development in India. The cooperation is extended by providing comprehensive assistance through various projects, including ODA loan of 23,035 million Japanese yen for the development of the IIT Hyderabad campus, technical cooperation projects to support personal and organizational interaction with Japanese academia projects and industries, joint research projects, and public-private partnership projects as well. Today, I would also like to welcome Professor B.S. Murthy, the Director of IIT Hyderabad, Professor Tarun Panda, the Dean of International Relations, Dr. Shubha Ranganathan, the Head of Liberal Arts Department, Professor Taichi Ono, National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies, Mr. Nishi Ryuhei, National Graduate Institute for, Nishi Ryuhei, First Secretary, Science and Technology, Embassy of Japan, Mr. Saito Mitsunori, Chief Representative, JICA India Office, Mr. Watanabe Jun, Senior Representative, JICA India Office, Mr. Vineet Saran, Chief Development Specialist, JICA India Office, Mr. Takada Shusaku, Representative, JICA India Office. And of course, all the faculty members and students present here, it is my honor to welcome you all today. Now, to begin with, let me call upon Professor Murthy, the Director of IIT Hyderabad, to speak a few words.
Good morning, friends. First of all, welcome to the whole Japanese delegation that has come here, and particularly Professor Ono for taking his time to educate us about the Japanese system and burning problems, that global problems that we are all facing. One of those problems he is going to address, and I'm very grateful for having accepted our invitation and coming here all the way from Japan to address all of you. Friends, as our friend just pointed out, IITH Japan collaboration goes for very long, almost last close to 10 years. We have been discussing, I think the first visit of the then Prime Minister of Japan to India 2007 started the whole I would say engagement with IIT Hyderabad. IIT Hyderabad did not exist on that day when he had a meeting with the then Prime Minister of India. And then the association started and it grew to a large extent that many of the buildings that you are seeing are all supported strongly by JICA. And at the same time, not only the infrastructure buildings, but also a lot of research. So the Friendship 2.0 you are seeing there, the Friendship 1.0 has been a wonderful success. A lot of faculty exchanges, student exchanges, a lot of collaboration, and a lot of research that has happened. A large number of papers, patents came out of that Friendship first phase. And now we have entered into the second phase. I am looking forward to seeing greater collaboration between IIT Hyderabad and Japanese universities, Japanese industries. This particular second phase, we want to focus also more on industry collaboration to see how we can grow together. I strongly believe the only way to grow is through collaborations. And our friends in Japan also strongly believe the same. Just about a month back in January, I visited Japan, a number of universities, number of officials in government of Japan I have met. All of them echoed the same feeling that the way to grow for any country, for any institute is through collaborations. Let's work together to ensure that we grow together. And that's the philosophy that we both share together, and I'm sure we will have great times in near future between India and Japan in general, and IITH and Japanese universities and Japanese industry in particular. I personally have spent about 2 years in Japan, and I have learned a lot from uh, my friends in Japan. There's a lot to learn from Japanese. I mean, if you go and spend a 1 month in Japan, you would know that there is so much to learn. The way they treat people, the way they greet people, from that onwards, that you can show respect to everyone, irrespective of their social stature, is something that I think I have learned it in Japan. This is one lesson that I have learned. The second lesson that I have learned is time is precious. Time is money. That one's time has to be respected very well is something that I think Japanese stand for. To the extent that people even say, if Shinkansen is delayed by 1 minute, they return you back the ticket price that you have actually paid for. So to that extent, they value time, and that's very important, particularly in this modern era, to respect each other's time and to learn how important the time is another major lesson also I have learned, that you give an appointment to anybody in Japan, he comes a few minutes before and then knocks your door exactly on dot. So that's something I think all of us sitting in India have to learn, because we many a times say IST is Indian stretchable time. So I hope today's program also started 10 minutes late. So that clearly tells that we should learn more. So I'm looking forward to the lecture by Professor Ono. I'm sure there's a lot to share between both of us. We both are having similar philosophies, the Eastern countries, and there's a lot of philosophy to share, with a lot of lessons that we can learn from each other, and a lot of commonality in terms of our beliefs, okay, whether it is beliefs in culture, beliefs in way of learning, and there's a lot of commonality is always there, and at the same time there is always a lot to learn from a neighbor who is like Japan. So we look forward to Professor Ono's lecture, and we would like to see more and more of that kind of lectures happening at IIT Hyderabad. It could be in an online mode if needed, or wonderful it is when a professor can visit IIT Hyderabad and give this. This is one of the new schemes under the Friendship 2, where we wanted to start something called a Japan Chair, and under that this whole program is being organized, and I'm thankful to JICA for initiating this program, and I would like to see more and more of such visits and more of exchange of ideas and learning from each other. Okay, thank you very much, friends.
Thank you so much for your opening remarks, sir. Next, we shall have a video message from Dr. Kitaoka Shinichi. Dr. Kitaoka Shinichi is the president of Japan International Cooperation Agency. Before assuming the present post, he was president of the International University of Japan. Dr. Kitaoka's career includes professor of National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies, professor of graduate schools for law and politics, the University of Tokyo, Ambassador, Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary, Deputy Permanent Representative of Japan to the United Nations, Professor of College of Law and Politics, Rikyo University. Dr. Kitaoka's specialty is modern Japanese politics and diplomacy. He obtained his bachelor's and his PhD from the University of Tokyo. He is Emeritus Professor of the University of Tokyo. He received the medal with Purple Ribbon for his academic achievements in 2011, amongst other honors. Now, let's hear from him.
It is my great pleasure to make an address before the inaugural lecture under the JICA Chair program at the Indian Institute of Technology in Hyderabad. At the outset, I'd like to express my deep gratitude to all officials at IITH and JICA who have worked hard to turn the idea of a JICA chair into a reality. India and Japan are natural partners. Japan has played a significant role in supporting India's development since the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries in 1952. But the relationship between India and Japan is rooted far deeper in spirituality, cultural, and civilizational ties going back to about 1,400 years. India and Japan have enjoyed very good relationship for long. Taking this opportunity, I'd like to start my address by introducing some historical snapshots between the two. Many Japanese people believe in Buddhism, which came to Japan from India a long time ago. Japanese leaders at the time put significant importance on Buddhism, and India was recognized as a mysterious and longing country in the far west. In my hometown of Nara stands a 1,270-year-old temple called Todaiji. There's a giant bronze statue of the Buddha for which South Indian Buddhist scholar Sri Bodhisena was invited to perform the eye-opening ceremony in 752 AD. That statue still remains there, worshipped by the Japanese people. A number of times in history, Japan and India have attracted one another. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose is known for his strong ties with Japan during his revolutionary movement. It was his enormous passion and engagement at the deepest level of his soul that fascinated the Japanese leaders at the time. They once fought together in 1940s during World War II to liberate Asian countries from Western oppression. Justice Zada Vinod Paru is highly respected even today by many Japanese for the noble spirit of courage he exhibited during the International Military Tribunal for the Far East in 1946. He wrote an extensive dissent rejecting the legitimacy and authority of the tribunal as an instrument of victors' justice. Among all judges, he was the only one who submitted a judgment which insisted that all defendants were not guilty. Another revolutionary Indian leader, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, once described the victory of Japan in Russo-Japanese War as lessened the feeling of inferiority from which most of us suffered. He also expressed that Japan had a strong impact on India's independent movement. Japanese people fondly remember his gift to Japan, an elephant to the Ueno Zoo in Tokyo in 1949, which also strongly encouraged many Japanese people to build up the country again. These events reflect the depth of our friendship and the fact that we have stood by each other at critical moments in our respective history. Another basis of the strong partnership between Japan and India is the official development assistance. Japanese ODA started to provide technical cooperation for South and Southeast Asian region under the Colombo Plan in 1954. 4 years later, Japan started extending ODA loans to developing countries, and the first recipient country was India. Now, Japanese ODA for India has extended to a wide variety of sectors, including infrastructure, healthcare, human resource development, agriculture, and forestry and natural resource management. India is the largest recipient of Japan's ODA loans in the world, and Japan is the largest bilateral donor for India. Among several projects, Delhi Metro is known as a shining example of the India-Japan cooperation. The Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed railway is another exemplary project showcasing the huge range of economic cooperation between the two countries. India-Japan relationship has deepened in the private sector as well. Maruti Suzuki is an extraordinary example which has been extremely successful and has just celebrated 40 years of cooperation in India last year. Maruti Suzuki is now the largest automobile company in South Asia. Let me touch upon my personal interaction with India as well. 20 years ago, I was a member of the 21st Century India-Japan Eminent Persons Group. A few years later, I was also involved in Security Council reform as an UN ambassador of Japan through formulating G4 with India, Germany, and Brazil. When I was the president of JICA, I visited India twice in 2016 and in 2018 and had the opportunity to meet with Prime Minister Modi. All these experiences make me understand that India is a very reliable and a permanent partner. The bilateral relationship has deepened year by year, especially due to the friendship between the former Prime Minister Abe and Prime Minister Modi. You may have heard of FOIP, Free and Open Indo-Pacific, which has been a pillar of Japan's diplomacy since Mr. Abe introduced it in 2016. This vision was evolved from an idea stated in his speech at the Parliament of India in 2007, named Confluence of the Two Seas. You may understand how Japan put importance on the bilateral relationship with India, which currently stands as a special strategic and global partnership. We remember that at the tragic time of the demise of Mr. Abe, Prime Minister Modi wrote a note starting with "My friend Abe-san," and that entire India went into mourning. We appreciate the sympathy expressed by the people of India. It was truly a sign of strong respect towards the relationship between the two leaders and the countries. India-Japan diplomatic relationship completed its 70 years in 2022. India is the largest democratic country in the world and will host G20 to show its strong leadership during this year. We believe that it is necessary to strengthen this relationship as we share universal values such as freedom, democracy, respect for fundamental human rights, and the rule of law. As we can see, the two countries have established a strong relationship through the shared history, diplomacy, and economy. Despite such a long and strong partnership, we still have a huge potential for expanding and fortifying the exchange at the individual level, especially in academia. Currently, there are only 1,457 Indian students studying in Japan, compared with 110,000 students from China or 19,000 from Nepal. As aging society like Japan needs further advancement, innovation, and talented personnel in its industry for sustaining the society and economy. The historical experience and technology of Japan and highly skilled human resource of India could complement each other to support not only the Japanese society but also the Indian economy in the future. With this background, in October 2008, our countries agreed to collaborate in establishing IITH in the Indo-Japan joint statement announced by the then Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh and Mr. Abe. IITH was expected to become and has become a symbol of joint efforts by the two countries in promoting educational excellence, especially in the fields of science and technology in India. Today, India places a strong focus on science, technology, and innovation as the world's powerhouse in these areas. Among IITH plays a significant role in advancing India's science, technology, and innovation through industry-academia collaboration as one of the top engineering institutes in the country. Japan, on the other hand, is renowned for advanced science and technology. After World War II, it has won the fourth largest number of Nobel Prizes in natural sciences after the US, UK, and Germany. In the 21st century, Japan is the second largest winner of Nobel Prizes in natural sciences. We have world-class technology, such as monozukuri or the art of manufacturing. Academic collaboration with Japan's technology and India's growth shall bring about further advancement in science, technology, and innovation. I firmly believe that expanding joint research and exchange between IITH and Japanese universities and the industry is going to contribute to the development of the academia and the industry in both countries. Let me now state something about the background of the JICA Chair program and its intent. Japan's road to modernization began 155 years ago. Since then, Japan has become the first and one of the best examples of modernization through a non-Western approach. One of the unique features about our development was that we modernized and rebuilt ourselves after World War II into a liberal, peaceful, and democratic nation without losing our own traditions and culture. Therefore, given this accomplishment, I believe Japan can serve as a very good development model for other countries. The purpose of JICA Chair is to provide our partner countries with insights from our experiences, including successes and failures. We expect today's participants to become leaders in solving problems in India and other countries and to act as a bridge with the international society. By sharing our experiences and the lessons learned, Japan can serve as a leader in development studies and contribute to global sustainable development efforts. I believe that many promising students who will carry the future of India are participating today. JICA has provided scholarships through Friendship Project for studying in Japan for promising young students like you. The alumni are playing an active role in the private sector, startup companies, and academic and research fields, as a bridge between Japan and India. I hope that you will make the most of Japan's scholarships and visit Japan. JICA's vision is leading the world with trust. Under this current unstable situation of international society, we believe forging trust between countries and between people is more critical than ever before. We trust at the core of our cooperation. JICA implements its programs with partner countries on the basis of mutual understanding and respect. By so doing, we hope to establish a free, peaceful, and prosperous world where people can dream of a better future and realize their diverse potential. Through these actions, I further expect that our cooperation will contribute to India's development, deepening our relations, and furthermore, expanding the international presence of India and Japan. Before concluding, I would like to once again extend my appreciation to everyone who has contributed to this program's success. Thank you very much.
We would now like to invite Mr. Saito Mitsunori to gift Professor Murthy and the Institute with a selection of books for the library that provide an insight into Japanese culture and scholarship. The books are from different subjects and will be a great addition to the library, providing nuanced insight into Japanese life, science, and cultural achievements.
So there are going to be so many, but today I just as a token, I just give some two copies of a book called India-Japan Relations at 70.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this wonderful gift, sir.
I'm sure a lot of students and faculty will get benefited by going through this. So India has a glorious 70 years, and we are looking forward to next 70 years of glorious relations. Thank you.
Now, I would like to request Professor Murthy to kindly hand over a small memento to our guests as a token of appreciation from our side. To begin with, Professor Taichi Ono, National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies. Sir, I request you to please come over to the stage.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next, let me request Mr. Nishi Ryuhei, First Secretary, Science and Technology.
He's not here.
He's not here. All right. Mr. Saito Mitsunori, Chief Representative, JICA India Office.
One of our best friends.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next, Mr. Watanabe Jun, Senior Representative, JICA India Office.
You were the one who was the one.
Now let me request Mr. Vineet Sarin, Chief Development Specialist, JICA India Office.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
And now, Mr. Takada Shisaku, Representative, JICA India Office. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone. Now, let me hand over the dais to Dr. Anindita Majumdar to introduce the theme of the lecture.
Good morning and welcome to the JICA Chair Lecture with Professor Taichi Ono. I would also like to welcome Nishi-san, First Secretary, Science and Technology, Embassy of Japan, Saito-san, Chief Representative, JICA India Office, Watanabe-san, Senior Representative, JICA India Office, Sarin-san at JICA India Office, and Takada-san, Representative at JICA India Office. It has been wonderful talking to all of you all these weeks. A brief introduction to Ono Sensei's work. Ono Sensei is professor at GRIPS at the University of Tokyo and has contributed several decades of his illustrious career to the study and implementation of policy imperatives around aging at the institutional and academic level. With a management degree from Berkeley and a PhD in economics from Osaka City University, Ono Sensei has published extensively on the themes of social security history, comparative analysis of health and long-term care policy, international contribution for the development of social security, health and long-term care policy. We are honored to host him at IITH. I would like to briefly draw your attention to the context of his lecture on aging society, social systems, and care for the elderly, implications from the experience of Japan, which emerges through contemporary policy and public anxieties around population aging globally. The focus is on, the focus is on three particular areas of interest. The first being population aging, the second of the demographic dividend, and the third is the crisis of care work globally. This lecture is especially important as it delves into the social and economic consequences of an increasing population of the elderly as the fertility rates drop globally. What is also important is a critical review of the circulating discourses around aging and demography as they impact future policy imperatives. The population pyramid is often used within demography to establish the role of aging and aged populations in the imagination of a country as young or old. Each stack on the population pyramid is a chronological cohort of 5-year increments. Age 15 is the boundary between young and old, which may differ in some contexts. The boundary between adult and older may be more fluid, with 60 as being a more universal identifier in international statistics. But in national statistics, the longevity revolution comes to mark countries with older people with 65 as a marker and youthful nations with 50 as a marker. The aim in differing age identifiers is to be able to avoid their representation as a graying population. The demographic time bomb is seen to bring in the graying of populations and is aggressively sold in the mass media as such. Dependent on media rhetoric driven through ideas of alarmist or apocalyptic demography, predicting age quakes or age tsunamis, population aging as a construct comes to resemble social and political anxieties of decline, especially in relation to care and labor. This is why the idea of the demographic dividend becomes very attractive to the modern bureaucratic interventions into population management. The demographic dividend is defined as a rise in the rate of economic growth due to a rising share of working age people in a population. This usually follows a fall in birth rate and consequent rise in the working adult age group. Also known as the demographic gift or bonus, many Asian countries such as India are optimistic about their future based on projections of the demographic gift. However, the role of institutional infrastructures is important in making sure that the dividend pays off, especially in terms of an increase in jobs and employment. Finally, the crisis in care is the continued demand for care workers, especially in social systems struggling with labor availability. Care work involves care of persons, which could be either paid or unpaid. Most care work, especially at home, remains unpaid, with the United Nations Statistics Division flagging the need to include the same in national income accounting. Declining care for the sick, elderly, and differently abled forms a large part of the crisis in care economies, especially in societies with graying populations and fragmented social units. It is to these themes we turn to in Professor Ono's lecture. I would now like to invite Professor Ono to the dais. Thank you so much.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. Yeah, it's quite an honor for me to have this wonderful, lecture today. So, as I introduced, I'm Taichi Ono, the professor of the National Graduate Institute of Policy Studies in Tokyo, Japan. Before assuming the professor's position, actually, I've been working as the official of the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare of the Japanese government for about 2.5 and 3 decades. So I do have the experience both in the academics as well as the practice of policy in national, and sometimes in several couple of years, I've been transferred to the local government as well. So from that experience and knowledge, I'm very happy to share what I have learned from the experience of Japan vis-a-vis the aging of population, mostly focusing on the elderly care issue. So today's agenda is like this. Now, first I will cover about the demography. As the professor has introduced, we are, I should say, the oldest population country in the world, and how it is, changed, and some small comparison with your country will be shown. Secondly, I will talk about the policy development, the socio-economic condition of the elderly in general in post-World War II Japan since 1950s until 2020s. Thirdly, I talk about the development of long-term care insurance schemes in Japan in 1990s. It is one of the, I think, the most challenging task for the government to introduce another social insurance program to address a care need for the elderly people and the families. Fourth is some implication from Japanese experience, which I feel is important, that I'd like to share to the audiences today, and some conclusion remarks. So let me go first with the demography part. This is a press release of the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare made in September last year. It is saying that 45,142 elderly will receive the Centenarian Award 2022. It means that they reached age of 100. So there are 90,526 people aged 100 and over nationwide. Thinking about our population, Japan's population is about 1/10 of the Indian population. This number is quite a surprising one. So it's a kind of a I think, image that you can imagine that our age society is how it is now. And next slide is a comparison of the so-called population pyramid between India and Japan. Left-hand side is India, right-hand side is Japan. For the Indians, India's pyramid looks like a pyramid, whereas ours are not really like a pyramid, rather than a kind of a boat with two bumps on both sides. So as you know, the concept of this population pyramid, the horizontal side is the percentage population, vertical side is the age bracket. So we are kind of tilted toward the age of the generations. There are two bumps there you can find. First bump is the first baby boomers who were born between 1947 to 1949, immediately after the World War II. And the second bump is the sons and daughters of these first baby boomers. Unfortunately, we didn't have the third baby boomer. That causes another huge problem in modern Japan. This is a change of the population percentage of 65 and over. Red line is Japan, blue line is India. In 2021, about 30% of population is over 65 years old in Japan, so which is very old country. In India, in 2021, it is that figure is a 6.8%. So the dotted line here is what I have slided the Japan's graph to the right to match with the figure in 2021 India to compare the speed of aging that India will experience compared to Japan. As you can see here, the rapid, how rapid we have aged, but India's speed of aging seems to be a little bit faster than ours, according to this UN projection for coming 3 decades or so. It means that various social changes or social infrastructures need to be situated pretty soon to address this issue. So you have to have the kind of quick, policy making to achieve something what you think is ideal. Actually, we have done some are successful, some failures we have made that I'd like to explain during the today's lecture. Actually, our population pyramid is a transition of our shape. So in 1960, when we are young, it looks like a pyramid. But now it is a kind of boat, like a kind of surface, but the shape is different, like it's a kind of boat. And the projections, it seems like a kind of a cafe latte or something. You see, the second baby boomers will get aged. And in 2065, it will look like more like a coffee cup. Another thing I should stress here is the estimation for the future about the number of children that we will experience. The shape itself does not seem to be so different, but on the right bottom side, you see the per grade or per generation number is quite different between the high estimation and low estimation. So that's why the current cabinet is quite keen on the investment for the child rearing support in Japan. Okay. And another thing that I need to say is a gender difference. You can see the asymmetricity of this population pyramid around age 70 and over. And this is a male to female ratio in Japan. When the baby is born, the natural ratio between boy and girl is 21 to 20. But as age goes, around my age, it is almost 1-to-1. Then more women survives than men. When we reach the age of 88, the ratio will become 1-to-2. This means that we need to think about the women's life as a kind of a major issue when we think about the aging society. Many policies are structured onto the culture or the social norm that has been practiced in one society. And we need to think about that the majority of the elderly are women. So we need to think about the policies that address their needs. And that this is the speed of aging compared to the compared among the G7 countries. Red line is Japan. You can see how rapid our population has got aged compared to other G6 countries. So in these Western countries, they take so much long time to prepare for the aging society. Whereas in Japan, we have to be in a hurry compared to the level of speed of the preparation than these Western countries. As I showed you, the speed might be quite rapid, but as rapid as ours for your case as well. So I think that's one of the point that we can learn each other by sharing our experiences together. This is a manga picture showing the structure of the family. It used to be the same. It is the kind of social norm that the three-generation household is. This is the age of baby boomers. So when the baby boomers were born and when they were child, three-generation household was a social norm. Once they got job, get married, they come to form the separate family. And typically, man is the sole breadwinner of that family, and women stays at home and have two children. It is a social norm, and they live separately with their parents. And their children, the second baby boomers, and after, it became the social norm. Both the husband and the wife works, and there are fewer number of children. And of course, the elderly sometimes lives together with their children, sometimes live close to the children, but sometimes live them by themselves. Or, as I said, this lady is widowed and stays at home. And most of the elderly in Japan today enjoy the life of the after retirement, but some faces the issue of loneliness, or some may pass away without getting noticed. That kind of problem also happens in Japan. That is a current challenge that we are facing. What I want to say by showing this manga picture is that how rapid the social norm changes about the family structure. And so it is a quite important perception to think about the elderly population. As introduced, I am majoring economics, but I kind of undergraduate degree was law, and I did a policy making. And sometimes the family issue is out of sight from the economist or the policymaker's view, but it is never forgotten upon the policy making that I feel. And the policy development and socio-economic condition of the elderly in post-World War II Japan. As the professor has introduced, we have enjoyed the population bonus. By the way, what is? This red line is the nominal GDP of Japan, according to the year since 1951 to until 2019. And the blue line graph is a so-called dependency ratio. It is a child population plus elderly population as of the working age population, which is defined here as the 15 to 64. As shown here, we have enjoyed the population bonus about 20 years in 1950s and early 1960s. Fewer number of children, and the aging was not so harsh so in that period. And we have had these 35 years of kind of stable condition of the dependency population ratio. Fewer number of children has been offset by the increase of the elderly population. But since 2000 and the 21st century, our dependency ratio is rising again due to the further progressing fewer number of children as associated with the super aging. And what I want to say here is that the Japan dependent population ratio has been below 50%. And through these 35 years, or 40 years maybe, very important policies to address the aging society has been established. And it was, I think, achievable. One of the reasons why it was achievable I think, is the economic growth that we have enjoyed. And starting from 1990s, our economy has stagnated. So at that time, we don't have so much good resources to invest on the aging policy. So we were fortunate at this moment, or we are fortunate that we could prepare the necessary basic structure. Of course, now we are kind of struggling with the fine tuning of these several policies. But the basic structure has been situated during 35 or 40 years. It was a good thing. So let me go decade by decade. 1960s, the establishment of the universal healthcare services and the public pension coverage was achieved in 1961. And we have legislated what is called as the Elderly Welfare Act in 1963. So it is what I call the era of the preparation of social security. Why the universal healthcare coverage and the pension coverage was achieved in 1961? We have enjoyed a rapid growth, as I said. The increase of the nuclear family size shrunk, and the authority of the elderly in the family was kind of lower. And we have seen the flourishment of the secondary and tertiary industry, urbanization, and outflow of the young generation from rural and urban areas. Depopulation of the rural areas with the elderly left behind. Such phenomena happens. So the concern for the elderly living alone or bedridden elderly came to be paid attention at this period. In 1959, national pension law was established. Actually, I don't elaborate the structure of the public pension scheme in Japan. It is too complicated for today's lecture. But basically, it is a universally covering scheme. And I put a parenthesis here, but it is the same important thing, is the universal coverage of healthcare was also legislated and achieved in 1961. So it is literally universal, 100% coverage for both the outpatient services, for the inpatient services. So it's a kind of egalitarian system, applies not only the poor people, but on the rich end of the people as well. In 1963, Act on the Welfare of the Elderly was established. In that law, it is codified that the elderly person, as persons who have contributed to the development of society for many years, shall be respected as such, and healthy and comfortable lives shall be secured therefore. And it was also prescribed that the state and local government shall have a responsibility to promote the welfare of the elderly. And these two paragraphs says that the elderly are somebody who should be respected and should be cared for. In other words, we need to pay attention to the elderly because they are weak and they need care and support. So such perception toward the elderly has changed for coming several decades. And nowadays, the perception for the elderly is quite different. But at that time, it is regarded as such. And third thing is that elderly welfare funds has been separated from the Public Assistance Act. The Public Assistance Act is dedicated to the very poor people, and it is transferred from that law to the Elderly Welfare Act. That means that the elderly welfare home was once dedicated for the poor elderly, but it is now addressing the need of the non-poor elderly as well. But people's perception does not change so much. That might be the cause of some issue that need a groundbreaking reform in 1990s, which I talk in maybe 1 hour later, more than less than 1 hour, maybe 30 or 40 minutes later. Okay, 1970s. Major policies is abolishment of copayment. Actually, copayment is for the healthcare services for the elderly. Free elderly care services was achieved. And one, governmental document states on social security, etc., was issued at the time. In 1970, what I call is the era of the enrichment and research for the aged society. People come to understand that we are facing the aging of population. But how tremendous it is now not so much a reality for them at that time. At that time, in 1970s, people's perception about living together and family structure, and asked for the elderly at that time. So people wish to continue to live together with children on the left-hand side, upper side. And why? The reason is that it is natural to do so. And the center part, you say, nowadays married children tend to live separately with their two parents. Do you think it is favorable or not? Majority of them answers not favorable. So that was a social perception in 1970s. Actually, that changes again in later period in Japan as well. In 1973, that free medical care for the elderly scheme was introduced. Basically, it made it free of charge. Before, it is charged. But at that time, the cabinet decided to make it free. Actually, that was the motivation was to provide the fruit of the economic growth to the elderly people. But that causes the issue of the overutilization of the medical services and imbalance between the use of the medical services and social care services, and that actually lead to the necessity of overhaul reform in 1990s. And this policy was abolished in 1983. Actually, this is, I think, one of the negative lessons that the Japanese healthcare policy and the social welfare policy can introduce to you that should be learned. Some policy which deemed to be good has some kind of negative effect that the negative effect might cause another problem, and that problem remains for a long time. In 1970s, early remarks are stated in several governmental documents. This chairperson, Kazuo Okouchi, is actually at the theme of my doctoral thesis. He is a prominent economist, a labor economist in Japan, and he was a dean of the University of Tokyo. And he wrote, as a chairperson of this governmental council, the necessity of the paying attention to the social participation of the elderly. It is but at that time in Japan, problem was that whether we should enrich public pension or not, or whether we should modify the public pension system or not. But he was stating that we need to pay more attention to the measures of the social participation to the elderly. Because elderly, there is an increase of the elderly isolated from workplace or family is observed. That we believe that the importance of having a job, of working, that will provide them the fulfillment of life. He says that the cruelty of leaving the elderly in solitude and loneliness. So that kind of perception was also stated in the governmental document about half a century ago. And his perception towards the people is that we human beings recognize that he or she is a social existing through working. In 1980s, major policies. Actually, the first oil shock hit the Japanese economy. We need to do some kind of rationalization of the services. And also, we need to see comprehensiveness. Actually, again, the details will be omitted. And I have put a huge reference note. So I think if you are interested, you can see the reference later. But for the healthcare programs and public pension programs, difficult to introduce. I explain that in very simple word, but some fiscal adjustment program has been introduced to have a more stabilized scheme. Preparation of the aging society took place since 1980s. That the fiscal adjustment measures written here in around 1985 and 1983. And these are the preparation prepared. These are done to prepare for the aging society because imbalances among the different schemes cannot be left untouched if we were to face a far changing demographic structure among different schemes. And these reforms sometimes regarded as a kind of a hindrance to the economy, to the welfare enrichment, but was a necessary one to keep our universal coverage of healthcare and pension system as it is today. And in 1986, important cabinet decision was made, which is called Measures for Longevity Society. It was a cabinet decision. They showed some basic directions for the policy making. And there are 5 concrete areas to be prioritized upon policy making. It is not confined to the health and welfare measures. First is employment and income security, including public pension and public assistance scheme. Second is, of course, the health and welfare. But besides these two, they have included the learning and social participation system for the elderly as a third important part. And the fourth one is the housing and living environment system. Living environment includes the transportation, public safety, etc. Fifth, promotion, research and development. Later, I will show you some of the progress initiatives held by the Japanese government to the invention of the personal care robots. So such kind of perception has been included in that cabinet decision. Okay, I skip this slide. In 1989, social perception. It is changing slightly. On the left-hand side, you see they're asking for the younger generation people between 40 to 42. How do you think of supporting your aged parents? About 40% says that support parents no matter what happens. But the 50% are responsive. Support parents within my own means. So the nuance is different. And center part is that they say how is the relationship about their children when they get aged. 42% responses want to have emotionally united relationships such as socialization. And but 1/3 of the population answers want to be independent from the children, both emotionally and economically, which means the progress of the kind of individualization perception is, more, getting the more support among the Japanese people. And on the right-hand side, you see 42% people say that they don't live together, but live close to them. That choice is that kind of a mixed feeling. They don't want to live together. They want to be a more kind of an individualistic way, but they need some kind of emotional ties with their children. The long-term care insurance scheme has been established in 1990, which is the theme of the latter half of the lecture, was based on that social perception. In 1990s is the era of the establishment of that long-term care insurance scheme, which I will elaborate later. So I don't mention about it now. I skip this. And that in 1990s, another important progress was that the cabinet decision, which was made in 1986, was kind of upgraded into the legislation. This is a basic law on measures for aging society. In 1990s law, it says that as a result of the tireless efforts of its people, Japan has realized unprecedented economic prosperity and has created a society in which people can enjoy the longevity. That is the all wish of all mankind. Why this sentence is included here is my understanding is that in that period, in 1990s or 1980s, due to the very rapid progress of aging, and some people feel that aging is a kind of a burdensome phenomena that is a negative one onto the society. But it is a consequence of our efforts for investment on the human development or investment in science and research on medicine or the pharmaceutical goods or improvement of the living condition, hygiene, sanitations, these kinds of things. All together, we have achieved longevity society as a root of these efforts. So I think it is aging is that something that all mankind has wished for, and various aspirations are made to achieve it. Then we should take it as something that should be celebrated. And we need to adjust our society with enjoying such achievement. And but they are concerning, of course. There is a concern for the aging society. We need to adjust some social system as well. It is expected that this proportion will reach one of the highest level. It says one of the highest, but it is the highest now. Unfortunately, growth in people's awareness of this problem and responses by the social systems are not proceeding as rapidly. Rapidity of the change of the demography is far faster compared to the change in the policy making. That is the concern of this message. So we need to kind of accelerate investment or the changes into the policies. Okay, again, I skip this. Actually, the content itself of this legislation does not differ so much from the cabinet decisions. In Article 5, but in Article 5, it is included that the effort of the people should be made. People shall endeavor to deepen their understanding of economic and social changes accompanying the aging society and increase social solidarity, while taking steps to ensure that they can live healthy and prosperous life during their old age. So this law requires people, especially the elderly people, to live the health and prosperous life. Especially so concerned about health, mind your own health. And Article 6 states that the government shall establish basic and comprehensive general principle. This is reviewed once in 10 years. And annual report on the aging policy need to be established. So this and chapter 2 is on basic policy. The menus of the basic policy does not differ so much from the previous one. Okay, so let's go to the elderly in 2000. It is elderly in 2000 is a second era of the rationalization, what I call, and the stabilization of the social insurance. Another measure was needed. These, what I'm writing here in this box, introduction of this automatic balancing mechanism system for the public pension scheme that will adjust the level of the public pension amount to the progress of the aging population, the imbalance, to adjust the level to match with the imbalances with the population among the generations. Second one is the introduction of the elderly health insurance scheme. This is a kind of independent, separated. A new scheme was introduced for the healthcare coverage of the very old people, which is 75 and over. For the basic pension is a first year public pension. The subsidy amount has been increased. Why the 2000 was the era of the second rationalization and the stabilization of social insurance was required is because in 2012, we are facing the time when the baby boomers will reach the age of 65, which is the regular retirement age in Japan. And before that, in 2000, we need to prepare that we have to kind of support the life of the age population, chunk of population, the first baby boomers will reach the retirement age very soon. So the 2000 was the kind of another rectification was necessary sometimes in some areas of policy. But there's some another stabilization policies were also needed to do so. So I think I should speak in details about each of the schemes, but it is too much complicated. I think there may be one semester lecture might be required that I am now teaching for the students in Tokyo. But anyway, but so we are envisioning that the retirement of the baby boomer will come soon. In 2010 is the era of a comprehensive reform and dynamic engagement. What we call the comprehensive reform of the tax and social security was achieved in 2010. And 5 areas of policies are introduced that are comprehensive reform. This graph shows who pays for the social security services. Green line is tax. Red line is from the employers. Blue line is the insured persons themselves. So the social security system, employee system, it is basically the employer and employee shares their burden, whereas the municipality-based system, basically the insured person pays some contribution, and it is matched by the tax contribution, tax subsidy. But for the basic pension, which the non-employed person are largely involved, so the subsidy rate of the tax was increased to 1/2 of that. The finance of Social Security can't rely on tax subsidy more in 2000. You can see in the graph, as after the 2000, the portion share of the tax green line has increased. And the amount has kind of hiked to buy the increase of the subsidy rate. So the public finance need another stable resource of funding, which made them decide to increase the consumption tax rate. That was 5% in 1997, but need some another raise, which is very, very unpopular in Japan, in the Japanese politics. So politicians would never do it without providing some benefit, as well as the political consensus between the party in power and the opposing party, that this kind of reform is inevitable for the future of Japan. So that is why this menu of the comprehensive package of the reform was made. In the bottom part, fiscal sustainability part, consumption tax rate increase was increased. But at the same time, the parties in power agreed that the revenue is plowed back to the enrichment of the child rearing support, which we are quite, it is a concern problem for us. And in that package, some benefit increase, but under some rationalization for the medical care and long-term care services was included. And for the public pension, stabilization of the financing scheme was introduced. So with that package, we have agreed that the consumption tax should be raised to 8% to 10%. But the raising to 10% was postponed twice, concerning about the still the economic concern of economic conditions concern of the Japan status. And these next two slides are the menus. It is a little bit too much complicated. So again, I hope that the audience who are interested in the subject will read it later. In 2010, two other issues that I should stress here. One is some advocacy made that the elderly generation is getting rejuvenated. I mean, getting younger physically and emotionally. So the group of gerontologists in Japan has proposed that we should call the elderly starting from age 75. And we should call 65 to 74 people as pretty old rather than the old people. And on the left-hand side, you see the scientific evidence that they have shown that the elderly's walking speed has increased and the grip strength also has strength for both a female and male. And right-hand side is the self-perception of the elderly themselves. When do you think is a starting age of the aging period? Majority responses, 70 for male, 75 for female. And the third largest response was starting from the age of 80. So the people come to enjoy the longevity, and their physical as well as the mental feeling is kind of getting younger. So that is something that come to be paid attention to us. And backed by this kind of proposals, then the late Prime Minister Abe's cabinet has assembled this the Japan's plan for dynamic engagement for all citizens. So what was unique for this policy initiative is stated in the blue color in the center part, that we enhance the child care support and social security, including the elderly care, as a broader economic policy, which will lead to a more robust economy. His cabinet regarded the elderly care policy is not only for the social policy to address the need of the people in society, but also the necessary investment for the future economy to kind of enriching or adjusting the needs, adjusting to the needs of the people of the elderly care is an investment, and it will contribute to the economic growth. He states that a society in which all citizens are dynamically engaged is a society participated by all citizens, whether they are women or men, the elderly or youth, people who have experienced a failure, people with disabilities, and people fighting an illness, can play active roles in their respective homes, workplaces, and local communities and any other places, including the elderly's social participation is one of the important factors. This is not just a kind of social policy, but can be called the ultimate growth strategy. Another thing I should say here is the initiative made jointly by the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare and Ministry of Economy, Trade and Technology, Trade and the Industry to the priority investment into the care robotic technology use for nursing care. In 2013, they have decided these 8 areas are prioritized areas for the innovation investment. Lifting assist, two types of lifting assist, two types of mobility assist. You can imagine with the picture. Right-hand side, you see the toilet assist, monitoring system people with a dementia, and bathing assist, which you can see the normal style of bathing in traditional Japan's household. And priority areas has been added in 2017. Wearable appliance to support workout, moving assistance in the toilet, prediction and notification of expression, and communication robot or for living assistant, as well as the information technology to streamline and to improve the productivity of the care worker and who works at care offices. And these are, many of them has been, put into the practical use at this moment. And some are covered by the public long-term care insurance scheme, which I explain following time. And these are the samples, the pictures of the technology used in the Japanese. These are all the pictures of nursing homes, typical nursing homes in Japan. On the upper part, three pictures are a situation in the COVID-19 time when their meeting with their family was kind of strictly regulated. A family moves this avatar robot. You can see in the avatar robot the picture of a granddaughter talking with the grandmother staying at the nursing home. Avatar robot comes to the room of the resident and chatting with the through this avatar robot. And the bottom part, on the left-hand side picture, the lady in the blue T-shirt is wearing the transfer assistant mechanical suit, which is a kind of robotic suit to protect her back to prevent the back pain. And that is a kind of a severe occupational hazard for care workers. To lift the lady on the wheelchair to the bed. On the right-hand side, you see the communication with the pet robot. You might see the similar thing in the toy store, but it is now used to the elderly care to kind of make a communication comfort for the elderly. And this is actually, I am not specializing in this field, but I heard that you are, since this university is a technology-oriented university and many students are quite interested in that. I have shown one URL to study further about this issue, the robotic technology use toward the elderly care area in Japan. And elderly currently, 2020s. The current Kishida President Kishida is a second part who is not wearing a mask. He's a kind of slogan for the to promote the social security policy reform is what is called as a social security system oriented to all generations. The meaning is that the underlining meaning is that the social security program is often regarded something only to address the need of the elderly generation. But he wanted to change that perception that the social security system is contributing to the well-being of the every generation, including elderly, but not only confined to the elderly people. So the elderly, about the, I think the first priority was, of course, onto the to address the issue of fewer children and decreasing population for their, aggressively promoting child support programs. But second priority is onto the continuing addressing toward the super Asia society. And among the basic philosophy, he has stressed the importance of the mutual support by all generations, according to the ability to support. What implies this according to the ability to support is that the elderly may not be the weaker group of people among the society. And they are, physically in large. Of course, it depends on the people, people. Of course, the condition differs so much, but in general, they are getting fit. And backed by the maturity of the public pension, they can afford to pay for the services that they receive using the public pension benefit and some assets that they have accumulated during their life course. And they can participate to the society as a worker or the other service providers and to help others in the society to cope with the fewer number of younger generation. They need to get involved to the society further. That is their message. I think. Shall we continue? Okay, I should continue. And I think probably around 11:15 I will stop. So please be patient another 40 minutes. Thank you. Anyway. Let's go to the latter part. Development of long-term care insurance scheme in 1990s, which is a story about 30 years ago. How we have prepared long-term care insurance schemes for the elderly. As I said, in 1960, universal healthcare coverage and pension coverage was achieved. And Act on the Welfare for the Elderly was established in 1963. 1970s, free medical care elderly policy was issued, and 80s, issue of social hospitalization was achieved. Unnecessary prolonged hospitalization of the elderly was seen. Hospital is not an ideal space to stay long period of time. To address the situation in late 1980s and 1990s, these two gold plans. Gold is when we talk about the elderly people, we call them as the silver age with their hair color. So the gold means kind of upgraded investment for the elderly people. The gold plan and the new gold plan. This has been placed under practice. But using the resources of the using the funding of the consumption tax introduced 3% in 1989, increase of consumption tax rate to 5% in 1997. So it was reinvested for the enrichment of the elderly care services, as you can imagine in the right-hand side picture. Then, 2000, a public long-term care insurance scheme was introduced. This is the fifth system of the social insurance scheme of universal coverage, followed by public pension, healthcare, unemployment insurance, and industry accident compensation. Let me go back again, 1960s. Healthcare and social welfare services was there. Healthcare's problem was, as I said, in 1960s. Social welfare aspect. There's a kind of stigma, reluctance attached upon the use of the services because the social welfare program, something is regarded, something that is addressing the need of the people who is in a misery condition. Not necessarily poor, but in kind of a, social support is required, which is not favored by the middle income and upper income people, who is growing in Japan under post-World War II economic flourishment. So the people in the middle income people who can afford to purchase some services does not like to use the social welfare services, which provides far better environment for the elderly to live for a long time compared to the hospital beds. But people wishes to use the hospital bed. So the issue of social hospitalization was there. not well coordinated between the two groups of services. So the necessity for the system-wide overhaul has come to be recognized at that time. So both the healthcare side and social welfare side, improvement has been made. On the social welfare services, as I said, the gold plans are the investment, a massive investment has been done, along with this elderly health and welfare plan that is included in 1993, where the local governments are mandated to establish a plan for necessary services locally. For the healthcare services, just like the general, unlike the general ward, some specialized services addressing to the needs of the elderly who stays at the institution longer is now established, like the long-term care health facility, which provides a rehabilitation and more, in a better environment. Long-term care wards is, higher private number of nurses and care workers to, support more. And whole visit nursing system is also introduced in 1992. And these plans, this is not made only by the Ministry of Health, Labour and Welfare, but the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Ministry of Finance has agreed. Three ministries, influential ministries, has agreed to achieve this investment and let the local government, in Japan's case, prefecture, in your country's case, a state, but our country is a prefecture government, and the city government is responsible for that investment. And the heavy transfer of fund has been made from the national government to the local government to enrich the elderly welfare services. And these are the, and this is actually constituted the premises to introduce a public long-term care insurance system. What I mean the social insurance system is that under social insurance system, people need to pay a premium to that program in exchange of the benefits that they will receive. Utilizing that social insurance premium, which is a mandatory imposed to the public by the legislation, government need to prepare the services that is worth for the burden, for the payment that they have paid. People will come to demand that I have paid this premium contribution. Then I need to be entitled to the services that the government promises to provide to me. So starting some kind of health insurance or social insurance program for the in-kind services, you need several amount of the infrastructure that can address the need of the people as the entitlement to that insurance program. So this is a number I skip it again. Then the current scheme of the long-term care insurance is explained. Current scheme. The insured people are actually the 40 and over, but it is categorized into the two groups. One is the elderly and two is the younger generation. Most of the services are used by the elderly people, and it is mandatory, no exemption. Insurer is a municipality government, which is the smallest unit of the autonomous government. Finance is 50% by the social insurance premium, and the remaining 50% is matched by the government. National Treasury or local government tax revenue is utilized to subsidize these finance. And it is excluding the user fee. User fee co-payment is basically a 10%, but the richer people can be charged to 20%. To use the services, and what is unique and different from the healthcare services is that for our long-term care insurance scheme, we need a certification. We are employing a certification scheme. I think the other countries that utilize the social insurance schemes for the long-term care needs utilize this kind of certificate, similar type of certification system to recognize if that person is in need of the long-term care services. And through the certification process, the degree of the disability of the elderly will be recognized, and the level will be classified into 7 levels according to their physical as well as the mental capacity, including what is called as the ADL or IADL in the technical term. They are classified into the 7 levels. Severest is a care level 5, and the support level 1 is the lightest one. And once the certification is made, each elderly is entitled to the certain amount of budget according to the level of disability. And within that budget, the elderly can combine the services that they want to use to support their life at home for daily day, to support their everyday. And the care management process is important. People doesn't know how to coordinate these services. The care management which is a licensed professional, and they will support the coordination role of the different from the different services according to the needs of the elderly themselves or the family members. For the institutional services, such as in nursing homes, this care level decides the amount of the payment from the long-term care insurance fund to the service providers. The severer the insurance will pay more to the institution, because the severer people need more care compared to the lighter ones. Types of insurance services are home care, community care, as well as residential care, including some healthcare services such as the home visit nursing. And I have forgotten to include here, but the devices that I have shown as the care robot, some of these devices, as well as a kind of a basic devices such as the wheelchairs, etc., is financed, either purchasing or rental by long-term care insurance services, as well as the home modification is partly financed by this scheme. And one unique character compared to other countries' long-term care insurance scheme is that there is no cash benefit in our country. In some countries, for example, typical one, the Germany case, you can choose to receive cash or in-kind services, or you can combine the two. But we don't prepare the cash benefit portion because in our social loan in 1990s, and still today, it is regarded if the elderly will receive the cash benefit. And that should be utilized to support the caregivers in the family. But one of the motivations to introduce a long-term care insurance scheme was to reduce that burden of caregiving role among the family, especially women's caregiving role. Wives, daughters, and daughter-in-laws. They are reducing their burden was one of the primary concerns for introducing long-term care scheme. So therefore, we have chosen not to introduce a cash benefit, but some countries chose to utilize a cash benefit. So of course, there's a debate in Japan. Some people in Japan say that we should introduce cash benefit, especially from the people who are taking care of the elderly at their home. So they feel that they are not well recognized, and they feel it is unfair for them. But it is not supported by many people who concerns about such imbalances for the caregiving responsibility among the family member. Services will be paid from the insurer according to the nationally unified fee schedule. Fee schedule is a price list. It is adjusted according to the price differences among the different regions. But the basic price list is applied to any services covered any same type of services covered by long-term care insurance. And it is unified and it is reviewed once in every 3 years. User fee, I said about the 10% copayment. This is a typical coordination of the care, what we call as a care plan and the service utilization pattern of the different of the same level of disability people. You can choose left-hand side type, right-hand side type. This is a kind of weekly menu of the service that a person certified as care level 3 can receive as the insurance benefit. On the left-hand side, you see 3 times you can go to daycare services and some home visit nursing services they can accept. On the right-hand side, almost every day home health services are coming. And on weekend, they will do the short stay. Short stay is a kind of respite care services program to give the family caregivers a whole day rest. You can combine. And this is within the care level 3 budget. And you can, coordinate with the help of the care manager as a sort of the coordinator for the appropriate services. Okay. Then social conditions of the elderly in 1990s. So let's go back 30 years ago in 1990s. These data, maybe following 5 or 10 minutes, I will show the data discussed in 1990s. In 1990s, already we are aged and we are quicker to age compared to these Western countries. Especially the significant increase of those 75 and over are projected. For the rate of getting in need of care services will be increased after the age of 75. 65 and 74 people are, as I said, relatively not so in senile, and the need so the need for long-term care service is less than the 75 or 80 or over. And the projection for the number of bedridden or demented elderly number is estimated as such, which was regarded as a quite severe problem. And about half of the bedridden elderly are in such condition for over 3 years, so which is a very long time. So the elderly, one of the difficulties of elderly care is you can't know when it will end. You see, compared to the child care, child will grow and develop him or his or her ability. So you can guess when the child care support ends. Of course, the concerns and other things remains, but you can know the time period. But elderly care, nobody knows, including the elderly themselves, how long they live and how long they live in that condition the care needs is required. Might be dementia might be progressed, the physical capacity might be weakened further. So no one knows how long it takes. It is a tremendous, huge burden for the caregivers. So the relying on the family support come to be difficult at that time in Japan. Increased change of the elderly household is now visible. In 1992, about 1/8 of the elderly lives alone. 1/4 lives with spouse only. With spouse only means that those would-be caregiver is old themselves and they themselves need care. So the getting number of the people living with children is still a majority, but it is getting smaller and smaller, and they expected to decrease more. And as I repeatedly say, women's wives, daughters, and daughters-in-laws takes the dominant role for the care of the bedridden elderly. Left-hand side, you see the ratio between male and female. And right-hand side, you see the relationship with the being cared and the caregiver. And the majority is a spouse of the child, following spouse, then child. So that is the situation. And women are main caregivers, but their labor force participation has been promoted actually. In 1986 was the time when our equal employment opportunity law was legislated to prohibit the discrimination based on gender upon hiring the employment. And the employment condition has changed to encourage more women to participate in the labor force. So it is difficult. It comes to be more difficult to expect women in family to take care of their family caregiving role. Actually, this is the current situation. Going back 2020, who is taking care of the elderly at home? Right-hand side, you see the female, left-hand side, male. It is more female are taking care of the main caregiving role than male. But the ratio has been changing a little bit. The dominant caregiver is spouse, which means wife, followed by women child, daughter. Third caregiver is spouse, male, which is the husband. Typically, married couple, male is older than female. So that might reflect such age differences. The fourth main caregiver is a child, male child, is a son. Then the spouse of the child, daughter-in-law, is now fifth position. So the situation has changed by the introduction of long-term care insurance scheme. I skip this slide. Same thing I have explained. I skip this again. And these are the difficulties caused by the caregiving role for the caregivers. Loss of earnings, heavy stress, not enough sleep. These are the most frequently responded concerns of the difficulties by the caregivers of the elderly people. Because these results are shown in 1994. And this kind of situation backed or supported the introduction of long-term care insurance scheme. Popular perception toward supporting elder parents. This is the kind of public poll made by the one national newspaper asking, do you take it for granted that the children will take care of their parents when they get older or not? Left-hand side, male. Right-hand side, women, according to the generation and age bracket. You can see both men and women between age 30 to 40, 30, 40, 50s. The response, no, the darker color, is dominating compared to the lighter color, yes part. Age 30, 40, 50s is, as you can imagine, they are the ages when their parents may come to in need of long-term care. So for that generation, they responded no to that question. And the gender difference is also significant. More women responses no compared to men. That they may feel that the caregiving burden will be shouldered on themselves shoulders. So this kind of public poll was also kind of utilized by the public officials to gain the support. And this is asked for the corporate executives, which are dominated by so-called rich men. And they are, some of the people says, and among the politicians, some of the sentiment or understanding that I'm against the establishment of long-term care insurance system because I believe that the care should be provided by the family. Family does not include himself. Family means that somebody within your own family that is not yourself. But those who have experienced the caregiving role among the main established groups. And they face heavy burden of household work. And they face violence or complaint of the spouse. So enrichment of the public support for caregiving will improve their quality of life for working as well. On the right-hand side, what is the most difficult issue caused by the provision of care? Answers: reduced concentration, restriction for scheduling, etc. So these can hindrance of their working life. So this kind of support argument is also utilized to gain the support of the establishment of long-term care insurance scheme. And the important part is the long-term care insurance scheme requires a premium payment by the elderly themselves. Not only the younger generations tax and social security contribution, but the elderly themselves need to pay for the insurance premium, regardless of their physical and mental capacity. But by the maturity of the public pension, it is possible to do so. You can see on the left bottom side, and this is the average disposable income by the age of household head. Age bracket is on the horizontal side. Per capita amount is the lighter color pillar, which does not change so much between the age 65 over, 70 over, and the younger generation. This means that the elderly has ability to pay by the majority of public pension, and and some will receive on top of the public pension, they will receive a corporate pension as a fringe benefit, or they have accumulated some assets. So it is no longer natural that all the elderly are poor. But of course, the gap exists between the poor elderly and the rich elderly, and we need to pay attention to the poor elderly's concern. But in general, especially considering about the middle income generation, we can start a program that requires a payment, a periodical payment by the elderly themselves. So remaining minutes, I will talk about some implications from the Japanese experience. One is the details should be based on the cornerstone philosophy upon designing the scheme. The Japan's case, supporting independence of the elderly was a cornerstone, so to say, a cornerstone philosophy. And the design of the governance structure is established around such cornerstone philosophy. I have, in a small letter, I have shown the United Kingdom's and Netherlands case. But in Japan's case, choice of the municipality government as an insurer, it is one of the key points of the designing of the long-term care insurance scheme. That was because it resonates with the basic idea of the multi-layered efficient system, preparing care services structure, promotion of in-home care, which is close to the elderly's home, based on the concept of the supporting independence of the elderly people. So the policy reforms, with or without defining the philosophy, this is a picture showing the difference. If you define the philosophy for the reform, blueprint is based on that philosophy, and concrete bill is established to realize that philosophy. But without such kind of philosophy, policies tend to adjust the problem at this moment. So I think the kind of a landslide or the kind of groundbreaking type of huge reform might be difficult without such defining a cornerstone philosophy. So I think the philosophy should differ country by country, but the establishment of such philosophy is one of the most important part, and one of the, I think, was the part that the achievement of the long-term care insurance in Japan was possible. Second one is a decentralized policy-making structure. I think the importance of long-term, local government is, never forgotten. Long-term care scheme is addressing the needs of the elderly people at home in daily life, in the daily neighborhood. So the each society, each sub-region or locality has different type of a living structure, like the family concept, working style, etc. So the role of the central government at this moment is to kind of issuing some kind of national guidance documents. Of course, the basic legislation is their fundamental role, but in addition to that, there's some kind of guiding documents. And I think the unification of the financing scheme might be a good idea to have a kind of equalized treatment among the different regions. And appraising the achievement of local government, not only with the numbers, but also the process of policy making. Third one is the relationship among the philosophy, financing, and governance mechanism. As I stress the importance of basic philosophy, choice of financing mechanism would imply the realize the philosophy of the new scheme. Tax-based schemes and social insurance-based scheme is different in nature. Not only, it is not different. The difference is not confined to the different way of collecting money, but the enshrined concept and the rights and responsibility of the people and the service providers and the government is different. Which type of scheme that you will use for establishing long-term care insurance scheme and other important schemes. So don't focus too much on the details, and let's think about broadly. Consideration of the evolving expectation. Society progresses, and economic flourishment is enjoyed by many. And the expectation of the people for the level of the service is changing. Today's elderly people who may know the era when there is nothing for elderly care services, they might be appreciated just receiving the long-term care services. But in 20 or 30 years, when some of here in this auditorium will get age need care services, they know that the life level, they have lived through the life and whose level, a material level, are different from the older generation. So they come to need upgraded, more enriched services. And that might become a social norm, which could be different from the previous generation. And social uneasiness might become if we were not be able to satisfy that changing needs. And change in family structure and social norm. I'm repeatedly saying it changes. In Japan's case, as I have shown you, it has changed. It might occur in your country as well. It may not occur in your country. So it is your problem, but it may happen so. And that sentiment might be different among the regions in your country with the 10 times larger population with a vast land size. So it might be a difficult question to respond, but this is an essential point, I think, to design the long-term care public scheme. Demarcation between the residential services for the poor elderly and for long-term care. So sometimes these public facilities tend to address the need of the poor people only, but majority, as the society matures, middle to upper income people also need the public support. In that case, they don't like to use the services addressing the elderly people. Thank you. And so, maybe the design, upon designing demarcation between the two, is, I think, what you may need to take into account. And of course, equity and fairness of redistribution is fine. I have heard in India as well, some real estate developers has prepared the investment for the quite upgrade high level class senior retirement residents for very high end rich people. It is okay, but redistributional equality should be also taken into account. And the investors, of course, I think the real estate investors will find there's a blue ocean for the investment to address the need to that super high, not that super high rich end, but a relatively rich or middle income people's market. In that case, they should establish confidence of the people for the information disclosure. Since the such a private housing is a lifetime investment for many people. And 8th point is the social recognition of the care workers. The care workers is not just a domestic helper or let alone the housekeeper, but they are the job that must address the needs of the elderly of various physical and mental conditions with diverse diseases of disability. So the mind setting for the care workers for self-motivated continuous learning, as well as a sense of compassion and respect, is also required. So it is quite a tough job. And it is, I think, the tough job that requires various skills. So I think in the addition to the investment for the education training, social recognition is also required, that the care worker is in a kind of a professional service. And by introducing the officer classification workers, setting up minimum educational standards, or providing more decent salary for them. And this is needless to say, political review and reform is required. And gathering the information and data for their care services is now required. Currently, the Japanese government is quite interested in the further investment on the utilization of the gathered data for the implementation of long-term care insurance for 20 years to predict the condition of the elderly people in future for the better enhancement, for the improvement of the care service itself. And use of ITs are now aggressively pursued. Final remarks. I'm sorry that I may pass the 2 or 3 minutes over. Public long-term care insurance reviewing provides the services for the elderly with certain level of elderly with certain level of seniority and disability. Like this picture, you can see this is a ordinary scene. But the public long-term care insurance scheme does not only provide the care services, but also subsidizes various types of the community support projects designed and operated by the municipality government. This community support project, establishment of community-wide network of mutual help of supporting daily life, is promoted. This is a picture prepared by the ministry, the concept of the community support project. On the upper side, you see community level, elementary school level, municipality level. These kind of the services among the mutual help activities, neighborhood, in the neighborhood community should be promoted more to support the elderly in this super aged society, in addition to their care, long-term care services. Just saying hello to the elderly to see if he or she is okay social exchange saloons, support for chores, or bringing the truck marks, etc., grocery delivery, these kind of things. And the conducting bodies expected are various groups, not only the public group, but on the also the charity group, social welfare corporations, or the civil volunteers. And for the participant, elderly themselves, is desired as participation to these kind of services will contribute the elderly who supports these services welfare, daily life. That will keep them active and prevent loneliness and also will to live. And thus lead to the prevention of care needs itself and keep their psychological health. Not only the single elderly, of course, but the couples are also welcome to participate. Actually, I'm sorry to postpone, kind of lengthy, but actually my mother, who is 79, she is a vice president of the Aged People Society in our municipality. And her notebook is filled with the daily schedules. And filled with going. Today, where I will go there, tomorrow I will go there, and she keeps busy, keeps herself very busy. Actually, it's her case may not be a little bit exceptional, but many elderly, especially like my mother-in-law, they are enjoying their life by participating in these activities. And the final thought is that the community support project idea resembles some concepts shown in the India's National Policy on Senior Citizen 2011. In that national policy, aging in place is stressed. And the full participation in society equally is also stressed. A second part is important, the opportunity of interaction with others and being said thank you from others, rather than saying thank you to others, would promote a sense of meaning of daily life and fulfillment for the elderly people. And what I think these are definitely indispensable to open the door for the brighter aging society, as stressed by the Dr. Okochi, who is the CMO of the My Doctor Thesis in 1970s. Final slide. As a researcher of social security policy, especially on healthcare and long-term care in the oldest country, I feel that it is a quite honorable mission to share the experiences that our country has experienced to our neighbors. I hope this lecture would contribute some to you, and I'd like to stop here. Thank you very much for paying attention.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, sir. Now, let me invite Dr. Shubha Ranganathan, the head of Liberal Arts Department, to share a few remarks on the lecture.
Thanks, Amal. Thank you, Professor Taichi Ono, for that fascinating opening lecture on the policy changes and shifts and developments when we are looking at care of the elderly and the aging population in the Japanese context. And what I'd like to do is just offer a few opening remarks and hoping that this would kick off a really lively Q&A session that will follow. Professor Ono offered a wonderful comparative analysis of India and Japan in terms of our demographics and in terms of where we stand. And what was really interesting is, the point articulated about the majority of the elderly population being female. Following that, Professor Ono took us on a very thorough and comprehensive analysis of the shifts in the policies over several decades, starting with the legislative acts for the protection of the elderly. And we can see how the policies have changed over the several decades, where you have initially the focus more on legislation, on a rights-based kind of understanding of care of the elderly, and then more recently, inclusion of a shift in economic policies and the idea of how the emphasis on childcare and care of the elderly in economic policies. And I think what was really interesting is also how we can see that, the notion of aging has also changed over time, where aging was at one point of time looked at in terms of, a burden, and then, you now have also the discourse of celebrating aging and celebrating the care of the elderly. And also shifts in terms of the definition of aging itself, and in terms of how do we define it in terms of who are the elderly, and who what does it mean to shift the age at which people are defined as elderly. And finally, I think one of the points which really comes out is how there are shifts also in terms of how growth is understood, wherein we are seeing in more recent policies a shift in the definition of growth from a purely economic perspective to a much more inclusive idea of growth, which also includes, participation of all members of society. And what is really interesting is that the more recent policies are not specifically focused on only aging populations or the elderly, but they also include all members, as was articulated, including a variety of other members. So I'll pause here and invite you to share your questions and comments, and I would request Professor Ono to respond.
Thank you.
Urbanization and migration is happening on a large scale worldwide. And as you mentioned, younger people are migrating from rural areas to urban areas, but their parents is still living in the rural areas because they have no sufficient living conditions so that they can keep their parents with them. And my question is, do you really think that talking to provide security to aging groups people without talking to urbanization and migration in a sustainable way?
Mm. Um, if I were to let's see. Okay, I think I have a yeah. My question is sorry, that your question is what I understand is about the issue of the migration from the rural area to urban areas to younger generation, and how that phenomena with that phenomena it is sustainable or not. I mean, the society is sustainable or not. Is that what you mean? Impacting. Okay. I see. Of course, it has a great impact, and especially for the industry or the economic prosperity in the rural area comes to the problem. And for some kind of local revitalization investment is one of the key issues of another area of the governmental policy. But what I should say is changing the subject a little bit, that I think the effect of the public pension transfer and the other social security transfers from the urban areas and the local area is also happening at the same time. For example, for the public pension transfer, our schemes are employing the pay-as-you-go system so that the current working generations and their employers' contribution to the pension fund will be spent on the current elderly generation's pension money. So there are many elderlies who are living in the rural areas whose pension, public pension, is financed by the younger generation in the urban areas. So it is a kind of a natural transfer of money from the urban area and the rural area is happening. And some of the local areas, local prefectures in Japan, about 20% of the total household consumption is financed by the pension money. So it supports the local, it supports that, consuming activities in the rural areas that support the rural areas as well. And also the transfer of money by the in-kind services from the urban as a form of the healthcare and long-term care. It creates jobs in the rural areas to address the needs of the elderly living in the rural areas. Again, the transfer of money in the urban prosperous area to the local areas to support the jobs, for the job making in that region is also partially achieved through that public scheme. So of course, this does not say that it is a sustainable mechanism. Of course, we need to consider about the kind of revitalization of the local community itself. But the social security scheme, including long-term care, function as a mechanism to support the local economy to some extent is what we should take into account. Okay. Thank you.
So I have two questions.
Yes.
And part of this was covered when you spoke about the community projects, but it goes beyond that. The first is about the kind of caregiving that you spoke of, technology assisted, various sort of diverse channels of support mechanisms. My question is about the extent to which emotional caregiving has been factored into these mechanisms, considering that happiness quotient is a big part of well-being, particularly in situations like senility and dementia. So when you spoke of how the caregivers need to be more qualified, need to be better paid, is there some kind of training mechanism in place? Because it is so challenging to put these mechanisms in place, where they are also trained to provide emotional care. So that's one question. And the second is there a way of looking at the elderly, not just as rightful recipients of care who demand that kind of respect, but also as assets. So for instance, simple things like facilitating sites where the younger generation might in fact get to interact with them more and gain from what they have to offer, perspective, just maybe a breather in the middle of the stress that the younger generation deals with. So simple community measures where the younger generation is encouraged to visit senior retirement centers, and they visit people who look like their grandparents and get to sort of have friendly conversations. And both sides of the spectrum get to gain from something like that.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. For the response to the first question, yes, I think as the technology progresses, but I think the technology is cannot never replace the emotional aspect of human-to-human contact. I totally agree with you, and it seems that based on that, let's see. It seems currently one of the concern or one of the motivation to introducing such mechanism is actually the overburdened workload of the caregivers in these kind of institutions under the situation of the smaller size of the working population in Japan. So we need to consider about the enhancement of the productivity and ways to attract more people who will support the care to the care work industry. So, and the use of the technology is addressed such kind of concern, but I totally agree with you that the emotional part is the inevitable and the most important part. Yes, I think. The second question might be the leaders of the community as the elderly. I think, well, it is, I think, well, I should say, there are, I think, two things that I come to in my mind. First is, yes, and they are, sometimes they are invited to the schools to give some lectures about the what the real life is to the children. These kind of activities are happening in various communities. There are two things that might not be promoting such kind of activity. One is a gap in the IT literacy, I should say. I think in many cases, the younger generation, they are more active internet users or the IT users. So the elderlies are, people who are not following that the IT revolution, and they are the ones regarded who are taught by the younger generation to catch up with kind of what is normally done here in the society. And the second thing is because of the the economic condition of the younger generation, employment condition is severe, largely severe compared to what the current elder generation experienced in their early days. So sometimes it is regarded that the elderly people are largely said well-off people, fortunate generation, compared to the current urban generation, current younger generation, whose kind of a global competition is getting harsher under the kind of the IT revolution economy or something. So that kind of a perception might might affect somewhat negatively toward the some kind of toward the such a kind of respect of senior kind of emotion in Japan. That is my feeling. So the Japanese people who are here might have a different view. But anyway, that is my response to you. Thank you. So
Thank you, Professor.
yes.
And that was a very, very detailed lecture. That is, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
One question I have is, when we talk about work-life balance, one of the things that people in the middle age group who are working and who are also simultaneously handling caregiving duties to their parents or in-laws face, particularly women, is that this aspect of their life is not recognized by their employers. Right? Are there any policies in place for people who may have caregiving duties for elderly in the family, and whether that might encourage more people? I mean, how do you provide care if you're not going to take, if you're not able to get leave, or if you don't get time off because an elderly pet is undergoing surgery or something? Could you speak about any policies that are in place, especially in private companies?
Okay. Yes. It's actually the care leave. Legally it is introduced under the labor code. Some period of the care leave is awarded to the employees as a right under the labor code, and I don't remember the specifics, but I think I don't know how I'm not sure whether that right is 100% pursued, but in the practice, in the neighborhood working places, because some employers may not be willing to give that awarded to the employees, or some are some are kind of inclined, or some are concerning the my other colleagues overburdened by taking a break or something. But it is legally it is set up. Yes, thank you. So I think there are some students over there. Question, raising hands. And please, please give the microphone to the gentleman. First, if when I respond, after I respond to your question. So your question first, then that the gentleman over there the next. Okay. So please. I'm sorry.
Myself, Vishnupriya. Thank you for this wonderful session. It was very informative. So my question for you is like, as there is increase in elder population, other than the emotional support, what would be the structural changes as the work life is more than the age where they are getting pensions and other schemes which they are usually having. So the work life is much lesser than the time they were getting support from the government and other schemes and policies. So what would be the structure changes and what would be your opinion on this?
So your question is on the the extended working life or reduced working life? I'm sorry, I don't get so well. So please, could you please repeat?
Reduced working life.
Because of the enrichment of the public entitlement and so. Yes, yes, actually the current one of the issue under the public pension policy is to encourage the people to work longer. Actually, our public pension scheme, the basic, kind of the regular age of the start receiving the pension is 65 years old. But if you retire later, you will get increased amount of benefit, pension benefit. If you postpone the receiving the starting point of receiving pension, and we are trying to encourage by reducing some restriction, some scheme that will de-incentivize the elder people, especially in the 60s, to keep participating for work. So the pension scheme is now trying to, address the to try to extend the life of the working, and that will try to attract the people that start receiving the pension in later years will be a favorable option for them. That is a general idea. So, but as I said, that the public pension scheme is a too complicated scheme, so I think it might require more than 1 hour to respond to your question in a complete manner. Okay, thank you. So please. Yes, I can hear.
Thank you very much for the talk. I have a question on specifically the medical knowledge that caregivers have and how they're trained up. But more so, you mentioned that there's a tension of family members taking up having the burden of taking care of the elderly.
Yes.
Are there any policies and informations where they're trained to medically recognize what are the risks and needs that the elderly need, and to that extent, given that aging is such a larger phenomenon in the nation itself, what does the general population itself come to know on how much knowledge do they themselves have share on the phenomenon of aging and the condition of aging? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, several issues I should respond to your comment. That the first thing is about the caregiver. Many of the caregivers in Japan are officially certified as a certified caregiver, certified care worker, which is a national license, which is different from the nurses or other medical professionals. But the education courses, minimum education courses, practical, periods of requirement. That kind of preconditions are made, and they are preparing the government national examination to be licensed as a certified caregiver, care worker. So in that educational program, I think I'm not remembering the details, but I think that some of the hours are sacrificed to educate some medical knowledge. And about the family caregiver, many municipality governments, local governments are providing some kind of a lecture course for the family caregiver about the basics of the family family caregiving to address the need of the elderly who has a different type of disability, including the mental type, dementia type. And another thing I should respond to the general population's understanding of the aging. I think I'm not sure about the in the precise manner, but in general, I think people are understanding that we are quite an aged country and facing the facing problems, aging and depopulation by the declining birth rate is a severe problem. And but I think many people's perception toward the macro term may not be, directly associated with the what to do in their life, in the kind of micro perception of your daily life. And the people need to know, people understand as a kind of macro term, we may need more resources to invest more for the elderly care, for the child rearing support. But in day-to-day life, if especially if you are not facing that kind of problem, you may not like to pay tax or social security contribution more. So addressing such kind of a different, conflict in perception within the people might be another challenge for the policymakers. So yes, do I understand? Do I respond to your question? Okay, very good. Thank you.
So my question is more to do with social solidarity.
Yes.
So you addressed how the idea of age and aging has been redefined, or the government policy has tried to specifically state how aging is a positive experience and how the elderly are to be respected and cared for. How about the stigma which goes the other way, that is from the elderly generation towards the younger generation, where the younger generation is stigmatized for not having kids, or single women or women who do not wish to have kids are sort of stigmatized by the older generation. And the age wars that we see classically in the West between boomers and millennials and Gen Z. How is that phenomena in Japan, and how is that being addressed?
I see. Okay. I think the I don't know. I shouldn't call it as a significant, but it is, I think, a huge problem. But the same kind of phenomena happens. Of course, generation by generation, not only the positive but the negative generation, negative perception exists. Maybe from the elderly generation to younger generation, from the younger generation to elderly generation. As I said, from perception of the younger generation, is regularly said to be that the elderly are more well off, and that they are the fortunate group of people who have experienced, kind of rapid economic growth in 1960s, 70s, and 80s when they are young, and for the younger generation in a kind of when the economic growth, we are not enjoying the life as it is. But from the older generation who knows the poor Japan in 1940s and 1950s, current younger generations are more fortunate. They don't need to worry about the tomorrow's food or something. So such a perception difference and the stigma might exist in Japan. And social solidarity itself is, I think, something that we need to keep redefining again and again. And the stress that the importance is also required. But it should be tailored to accommodate the changing feeling toward the family, especially about the gender role and let's see the changing of the what I said, physical and mental capacity of the elderly, because they are, because of the longevity and the period of the, life after retirement is getting longer, and they are in a more fit situation. Such kind of things is also they need to take into account. But the social solidarity itself is quite important element of society that I think, and I personally feel that such stressing that aspect is what our Japanese society is now not actively conducted. Unfortunate situation for us, but I think this is my perception, and also it might be different from the other Japanese people. But I think that's the status of our nation as it is. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, sir, for your talk.
Thank you.
One point that I have noted was that in India, as in Japan, the government is mainly made up of much older people than, say, the current average age. In India, we have a much younger population than the people who are running the government. So, is there a kind of sense that a lot of the policies that are being made are older ideas that are being forced onto the younger people?
It could be. It could be because of the size of the population affects the size of the number of voting, and I think but I don't like the word. Sometimes some people says it is a kind of generational effect, and it is it is sometimes people call it as a silver politics, which is the addressing the need of the elderly prioritize compared to addressing the need of the younger generation. But I don't like that word, actually, personally, because it will create discrepancy among the people, and it will affect negatively towards the social solidarities that we need. But anyway, I think it might be possible. Yes, of course, because of the majority of the people are elderly. So if we were to if some government, a local government need to address the needs of the citizen, it means that the needs of the elderly is larger compared to other generations. So it could be, but but on the contrary, it is quite important, quite interesting to see that many years, like the mayors in the municipality government, who is the chief of the administration and won by popular vote, and they pledge to investment more on the child care service and child rearing services because this saying that they know that they can win the vote, including the elder generation, because they feel that the elder generation also want their community will be revitalized by inviting more younger generation and attract more younger families to the vitalization of the community. So that's the interesting part, and it is a quite interesting question, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
There is one. I mean, we're running out of. Okay.
Okay. It should be a last question.
Last.
Thank you. I have two questions.
Yes.
Slightly off, like the very direct kind of focus field. But welcome some of the questions that came up. I'm wondering, culturally, what is the figure of the elderly in contemporary Japan? So is there in this recognition that Japan is an aging society? Is there also in popular culture there's a lot of celebration of youth, for example? Is that the case in Japan as well, or do you see culturally there is a shift in terms of how the society imagines itself and how the elderly are then figured? The second question is I'm interested in maybe spillover effects in some ways of the phenomenon of aging. And if the birth rate in Japan is high enough, for example, one of the popular measures globally is the increase of migration into the society, and consequently then rethinking what the society itself, which has effects on how the society then itself conceives of itself. Like, so the US is the melting pot, and now you again see in Canada and Australia and a lot of other places, there's a lot of emphasis being put on bringing immigrant populations into the country so that you have a replacement level, you achieve a replacement level, and so on. Given the situation that Japan is in now, my question is then also whether there is maybe potentially a rethinking of what constitutes nation, what constitutes nationhood, what constitutes citizenship, whether we need to think about community in new and different ways.
Okay. First question is about the cultural phenomena, about the effect of the aging. Let's see. I think the pop culture itself is, of course, the addressing the needs of younger generation, and it doesn't look so different from the previous days when I was young, but still, well, I think maybe yes, two things I can say. The one is I think that it might be the same with your country, but such entertainment itself is a kind of globalized. So the younger generations, does not need to be confined to the consumers of the Japanese pop culture. So they are facing of a more globalized way enjoyment and for that kind of enjoyment and entertainment. For the elderly generation, I think the market might be increasing, but I'm not sure how, like the kind of concrete numbers, which size it is or so. But one thing currently being said among the people, it is not a kind of a stylistic comment, but as one the middle-aged guy's opinion. But sometimes I can say that the TV, just like the broadcast TV, is addressing more the need of the elderly people. Younger generation does not like to watch with the broadcast TV rather than they might want to choose from the some internet programs rather than the commercial TV. And the second one is about I think you are talking about the immigration or something about the whether we'd like to invite more foreigners to come to Japan vis-a-vis the decreasing.
The recognition of an Asian society doesn't lead to
In this society.
immigration policy, among others, in order to think about society differently than it was.
I see. Well, I think, yeah, starting from the current situation, I think unlike what we have seen in the Western European or American, the United States, we are not so much open to the foreign younger workers come to Japan, but we are trying to change that policy direction a little bit. Actually, that initiative has started late. I think in 2019 was one of the key legislation was made to welcome more foreign younger workers to come to Japan. But unfortunately, 2020 COVID happens, and it seems to me that in a few years after that 2020, that movement has kind of reduced its momentum as well. But I think we are trying to reopen our country. But well, I think. It might be a kind of so due to the size of the foreign-born people who are coming to Japan, it is relatively small compared to other countries' situation. So I think that the effect, if we were to see a kind of a significant change in the social structure as a whole, it might take longer time compared to other countries. That is my private view about that. Thank you. Thank you. I think I need to give microphone back to her.
We got a bunch of interesting questions. Thank you everyone for that. And thank you, Professor, for sharing your insights on each and every question that was asked. Thank you so much. And now we will have a message from Mr. Nishi Ryuhei on behalf of the Embassy of Japan. Mr. Nishi Ryuhei is First Secretary in charge of Science and Technology, Grassroots Grant Assistance Program at the Embassy of Japan. He was assigned from the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology to his current position in October 2021. At MEXT, he had been in charge of space policy, quantum technology, and science and technology human resource development. Mr. Nishi was also in charge of reforming university education and international education at the compulsory education level. Over to you, sir.
はい、Namaste and good morning and こんにちは。Professor Ono Sensei, thank you very much for very interesting lecture. And distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, I am Ryuhei Nishi from the Embassy of Japan in India. I am a first secretary and in charge of science and technology and also people-to-people exchange. First of all, let me express my heartfelt congratulations on the first JICA chair lecture at IIT Hyderabad. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to IIT Hyderabad and JICA India office and all other stakeholders for organizing this event. Needless to say, India has experienced a huge growth and is now one of the leaders in the world. This year, India is hosting G20, the big event, very big world event. And in India, I believe that India is supported by the wonderful students and the researchers and teachers here at IITH. IITH students are working in cutting-edge fields not only in India but also around the world. We, the Japanese government and the JICA, are really pleased to be working with IITH. I believe that it will be great if IITH become a hub for even more young people interested in Japan and deepen the relationship between Japan and India. This first JICA chair lecture by Professor Ono is a great step to this opportunity. I also learned a lot of things that I didn't know about Japan, Japanese system. Thank you very much. As you may agree, the relationship between India and Japan has experienced a rapid and significant expansion in recent years. And science and technology is one of the most important fields to which both our governments attach the highest value for further bilateral cooperation. There are many areas where more cooperation between India and Japan is aspired. We are looking forward to the exciting synergy in such important fields as artificial intelligence, AI, of course, healthcare and environment, green energy, or nanotechnologies and quantum technologies, and so on, where the researchers from both Japan and India are collaborating to make contribution to better lives and society. One more important area is people-to-people exchange. I strongly believe that people-to-people exchange are the basis for the bilateral cooperation between our countries. I feel that there is still very little exchange between Japan and India, especially among the younger generation. I would very much like to increase this number of exchanges. I understand that leading researchers, teachers, students, and other related persons are participating in this event. I sincerely hope that this event will accelerate education, research, and people-to-people exchange in this great university IITH and further develop cooperation between our two countries in the future. So let me conclude my remarks by wishing this event will be fruitful and meaningful for you all. Thank you very much. And Danyawada. Arigatou gozaimasu.
Thank you so much for your words, sir. As we are moving to the end of the event, let me request Mr. Saito Mitsunori for the closing remarks. Mr. Saito Mitsunori is Chief Representative at the India Office of the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA. He joined the Overseas Economic Cooperation Fund, Japan, in 1995, starting his assignment as representative at Kenya office between 2001 and 2003. He has vast experience in infrastructure financing and capacity development support in African countries such as Egypt, Nigeria, Morocco, Kenya, Rwanda, and Sudan, etc. In India, he first worked in a project for machine modernization of Coal India Limited in 1998 and was later assigned as representative at India office in 2006. During his 4-year tenure in Delhi, he was engaged with various projects like Delhi Metro Rail Phase 2, Bisalpur-Jaipur Water Supply Project, and Tamil Nadu Afforestation Project. He was also involved in the formulation of metro projects in Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai. In August 2021, he was appointed as Chief Representative at JICA India office. He graduated in 1995 with Bachelor's in Law from Tokyo University. We are honored to have you here, sir. Over to you.
Thank you very much. It is my great pleasure to make the closing remarks in this first JICA chair in India at the IIT Hyderabad campus. I'd like to express our sincere, deepest gratitude to first of all, Professor Ono for accepting our offer. The lecture was very insightful and I would say very stimulating in the Indian context as well. And I think the lecture and the Q&A session brought you lots of perspective, lots of food for thought, and I think this will further stimulate or give something new, some new windows for your academic career in future. Anyway, still our thanks to many people, but most particularly head Dr. Shival, head of liberal arts, and Dr. Talon, dean of international relations, and of course Mr. Nishi from Embassy of Japan, who came all the way this morning. Oh, well, so when we thought about the JICA chair in India, so we had no other choice but IIT Hyderabad. This institute is really the shining example of Japan-India relationship, as highlighted by Mr. Nishi. While doing lots of infrastructure projects like metros, irrigation scheme, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, bullet train, our focus, sentimentally, emotionally, our focus is on human resource development, which is a pre-model for sustainable and sustainable, vigorous development of any countries, but more relevantly to India. So I hope this lecture will bring some additional element, food for thought for the activity of IIT Hyderabad. And also I appreciate all the faculties, students to have realized this occasion and who actively participated in in not only listening but interacting with Professor Ono. I feel very encouraged that students like you will really bring about brighter future for India. But to India, yes, you have your own agenda, your own challenge, and the aging society will come whether you wish or you may not wish. So I think I hope Japan and India can think together and act together to come up with to cope with this one of the very challenging issues in decades to come. Well, this is the first JICA chair, but we will never stop make it as just one shot event. We are open for another series of lectures like this, either in Hyderabad, yeah, it can be in other higher education institutes. So this is just the first step, a small but very precious step of the whole series to come in the years to come. So yeah, let us. I would like to continue discussion about the next edition of JICA chair, either in Hyderabad or in India. So that's more or less I would like to I wanted to share with all of you. I wish all the best for continuous academic success of IIT, and especially for all the best for liberal art department. As though our relation with JICA is not as strong as other departments as of now, but yeah, we can start more interaction. Anyway, thank you very much, and I wish all the best to everybody. Thank you.
Nishita, sorry, we forgot to.
As this event comes to a close, I would like to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for your valuable contributions, the insightful presentation, of course, and the discussions, and made this event a great success. And of course, thank you each and every one of you here. Thank you so much for being here, and have a great day ahead.
Thanks, Anagita, for all the quality. Professor Ono, your laptop should be disconnect. And all the thanks to Shubham for IT.
No, ma'am.